It's like your goal was to never break anything ever.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do anything stupid like smash it into a wall just to test how durable it is. How heavy should a 5-inch freestyle quad be? And more importantly, how heavy is too heavy? I've got a number in mind that I like my 5-inch freestyle quads to be underneath. And I have criticized certain quadcopter frames for being too heavy and basically completely ruled them out. But I've had some experiences recently that have made me rethink some of this. Let's start by looking at this frame, the Lumineer QAV-S JB Edition. That's the frame with my name on it, and so it's the frame that most closely represents what I look for in a 5-inch freestyle frame. And the weight of this frame is 107 grams without the battery pad. Now, in my opinion, this is a lighter weight 5-inch freestyle frame. There are a few 5-inch freestyle frames that come in even lighter, say down into like the 95 or maybe even 90 gram range. Most of the typical ones, I would say, come in closer to 125 to 145 grams. And then there are some thick boy frames that come in over, say, 150, maybe up to 180 grams. And those are the ones that we're most interested in today. But I feel like the optimal weight for a 5-inch freestyle frame is around 125 grams, maybe a little bit less. And before you say, well, what difference does 10 or 20 or even 30 grams of the frame make? Saving weight on a freestyle build, especially a 5-inch build, is a battle of inches, if you will. There are a few things you can do to make the quadcopter much lighter, like leave the GoPro off. Boom, 120 grams right there. Amazing. But once you've gotten rid of the heaviest things, everything else is 10 grams here, 15 grams here, 5 grams there. And that all adds up to maybe 40 or 50 or 60 grams, which is maybe 10% of the total weight of the quadcopter, which is not nothing. Let's just get out of the way that there 100% is a difference between a quadcopter that weighs, say, 650 grams and one that weighs, say, 800 grams or 700 grams. Or I'm going to show you some footage a little bit later in the video to demonstrate what I'm talking about. But if you're trying to build a quadcopter that weighs, let's say, 700 grams all up with a GoPro, you're going to need to save weight wherever you can. And choosing a frame that weighs 110 grams instead of a frame that weighs 140 grams is a huge chunk of weight towards getting you toward that final weight that you want. My big objection has always been the weight. 165, 170 dry, is
it's
that right?
literally 40 grams heavier than the Vanny style.
That's 40 grams!
So
that's
what?
That's a huge amount of weight.
This mount weighs 40 grams.
I know! That's my point.
Yeah.
All right, let me, I guess I'll use your goggles because you're bound. Yeah, just to, you know.
You could just, the bind button's right there if you want to.
Oh,
I run this into the strap.
Look at that. That's hot, man. Is that it, 3D printed? That is smooth.
That's resin printed, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It's resin printed.
That looks molded. Did you smooth that at all, or did that come right off the printer?
So that's painted with a lot of coats of paint. That's automotive paint, so that actually makes it look smoother than it really is.
Do you know how to do automotive paint?
Yeah.
That's really primo. That's primo. It doesn't feel underpowered doing punch outs. I mean, it's less nimble. I do feel like it is. I feel like a style where you're doing flings,
right? It's
more suited than a style where you're doing flicks.
Man,
oh God,
it's windy.
so windy.
So windy.
Wow. Oh, it's really bad.
Oh, here it comes. We're in a hurricane.
Oh no, I can't go forward anymore.
Oh my God. This is ridiculous. What is happening today?
So I was able to dive in there, and I was able to get her done without, you know, running out of power.
Yeah.
Oh God, so much wind. We get a little durability test after all.
There we go.
So much wind. You knew that was going to happen, right?
Let's check her out.
She did.
All dirty. Woo! Look at that. Can't break the Tanq. Got some mangled props, but she's good to go. Bend it.
Where did it take that hit?
Right on the prop.
Right on the prop. I don't know. Maybe motors have gotten better, or maybe my 850 gram was maybe this is closer to 8. I don't know. It seems to be doing better than the 850 gram quad I remember. Flying.
I think we definitely have more power and technology.
Not a lot of batteries. Not as much battery sag as I remember. I mean, here's the thing though. To really demonstrate this, I feel like weight is one of those things where there's a threshold. Weight is like latency, in a way, where there's a threshold where it's so bad that you're just like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
You give me a latency of 100 milliseconds, 70 milliseconds, really extreme, and I'll be like, forget it. And then there's this middle ground where it's okay, it's not too bad.
Yeah.
But then when you try, I would be interested to fly this back to back against like a 700 gram.
Yeah.
And go, huh? Do I like the Of course, the 700 is not going to be anywhere near as durable, right? No way.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do with flying style too. Like if you have that juicy,
poppy, punchy
freestyle, then maybe a lighter quad's better suited for you. But you're also not flying through concrete buildings like when you're doing that. You're out in the field usually when you're doing. I can't think of the name of the
Spang.
Spang, yeah.
You're not going to be doing Spang. Well, I'm not going to be doing Spang with anything, but...
Right, if you're doing Spang, though, I could see the total benefit of having a lighter weight quad, but when you're flying through a bando, which is most of the flying that I do, concrete, metal, and all that stuff, you're not doing Spang flying typically, you know?
Okay.
It's more of a flowy...
the right tool for the job, I guess is what we're saying. Let's try and be a little. So, did you know I've been working on spanging?
Yeah, I saw your videos. You're doing the whole 30-day challenge or whatever, right?
That was pretty punchy. I'm not the right pilot to do this because I'm not little flick and. Oh, no. The wind is making it extra hard, but hang on. See if I can do a rewind. So it's not as poppy and punchy as like it would be, but it's not like a pig. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Not that...
It definitely doesn't feel like a pig.
Not that there's anything wrong with being a pig. Pigs are delightful. Let's try and be a little more punchy. But I don't want to just put it in a gap, put it in a hole and crash it.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, is that you can just,
How about if I put it in the top?
If you miss, it's okay.
How about I put it in the very, very top of a tree? Where's turtle mode?
Is it at least the highest one?
Not quite, but...
Well, as much as I am willing to offer my opinions on frames I have only ever seen a picture of on the internet, I don't think you can really understand a frame until you've actually built it. Rotor Riot frames have never really impressed me with their sophistication. Like, I know from experience that guys like Shawn Morrison put a lot of thought into these designs, but they don't have a lot of cosmetics, let's say. They're very simple. There's not a lot of cutouts here, and Shawn would probably say we didn't want cutouts because we wanted it to be as strong as possible. But you look at a frame like the AOS 5 by Chris Rosser, and he says, I used CAD design to cut out all the parts that aren't really contributing anything to the strength anyway. And maybe he's right. This is a very utilitarian frame. It goes together is similar to how a lot of other frames of this type do. We've got a split bottom and top deck. They sandwich the arms together and screws go through the arms. This is not going to be a situation where you're going to have like a one screw arm change. You are going to be taking out these screws in order to get the arms out. And one of the biggest complaints that I've always had about Rotor Riot builds, which is that the stack screws go through here and they go through the arm. And in the past, you've had to actually take the whole thing apart because the stack screw gets in the way of the arm. I think they fixed that on this one. Let's imagine that I've broken this arm. I'm not sure how I would break this arm. It's enormous. It's a frickin' 8mm thick arm, but let's imagine that I broke this arm and I need to change it. These screws come out and you can see I've got the head of the stack screw in here, but they have put a channel in the arm to allow it to slide over that stack screw. I don't even know if they've done this on any of their other frames, because on the other frames, the freaking arms aren't thick enough to take that channel out of there. But in this one, at least, you can change the arms without having to take the whole thing apart to make room for the stack screws. That's great. The aluminum front end obviously adds a lot of durability in front end impacts. That's not going to wear away like carbon fiber. And as thick as it is, there's not going to be much that is going to cause it to bend or deform. At least that's what I think. One of the disadvantages of metal front ends is that they can be less flexible in your camera mounting. The way that Rotor Riot is solving this problem is similar to the way that a lot of frame manufacturers are handling the new O3 Air unit. The O3 Air unit's camera is a little bit different in dimensions from what's come before, and it doesn't work with a lot of pre-existing frames. What they're doing is they are having 3D printed inserts that go in here. I'll just pop it back out again so you can see. And this 3D printed insert, I think I've got that upside down. It will let you put the camera in and change the sort of spacing and location of the camera. There doesn't seem to be as much flexibility with this insert as there is on some other frames. Some other frames also have the insert made so that the camera can be moved back and forth, maybe by flipping the insert upside down, such as with the Apex Evo does it that way. With this one, it seems pretty clear that the camera's front to back orientation is going to be relatively fixed. This is how you know he's not fooling around about durability. Most frame designers would have let this aluminum cage stand on its own, but not Shawn. He's going to put in not one, but two standoffs as cross pieces to really make sure that you can beat the front end of this frame into a freaking wall all day long. And the front of the frame will come home at least in one piece. Speaking of 3D prints, there's a ton of 3D prints available for the Tanq. Many of them are available for purchase on the Rotor Riot store, and you can just buy them pre-printed. But if you have a 3D printer of your own, you can actually go to Shawn Morrison's Thingiverse page. He's designed a ton of prints for this frame that aren't even on the Rotor Riot store yet. It's just experimental stuff. And if you have a 3D printer, you absolutely are going to want to check them out. I'm also really happy that Rotor Riot is one of the only manufacturers to include a proper sticky battery pad with their frames. And by sticky, I mean, look, it's literally sticky, okay? As it gets dirty and dusty, it loses some of that stickiness, but not all of it. And you can always sort of apply some water to it to clean it off again and refresh it. And the sticky battery pads are so much better at keeping your battery from sliding and ejecting. It's all I use. And every other frame on the market, it seems like, includes standard battery pads. They protect from the screw heads mostly, but they don't do a good job of keeping your battery from ejecting. It is a must-have for me. It's nice that they include more than you need. And now the moment of truth for this frame. Let's put it on the scale. And it comes in at 185 grams. And that's without a lot of the additional 3D printed stuff that Shawn would put on it, the arm protectors and so on. It's going to put it over 200 grams. And in the past, I would have said that that was a total deal breaker, that I wouldn't even consider it. But I think in the process of making this video, I have come to understand what makes these frames so appealing. And I've come to think of a way to put this together where the additional weight doesn't actually matter. Let me start with the first one. The reason these frames are so appealing is that they will not break. They will come home. You might bust a motor or bust a prop, but your frame is going to be okay at the end of the day, and it's going to do a good job of protecting your electronics. Well, everything except the motors. There's only so much you can do to protect the motors. These frames are definitely less agile and more sluggish than lighter frames. When I switched from flying the Tanq to flying my QAV-S build, which comes in at around 700 grams, it was like taking off the fat suit and suddenly, I'm free. I can do all these agile stuff. It feels great. It's punchy. It's responsive. When I was flying the Tanq, it didn't like feel bad. I was working with what I had. I was kind of trying to make it work. But then as soon as I switched to something better, it was like the veil was lifted from my eyes. There's no question to me that I would rather fly a 700 gram frame, but I am not everybody. Especially people who go way harder than me and are much more likely to break their frames, or beginners who don't really do extreme stuff, but they are likely to crash and they are more likely to break their frames. They're not likely to notice the lack of agility because they're not doing anything anyway. These are the kind of people for whom this frame might make sense. And if you were to take the GoPro off, what do you need a GoPro for? Who are you shooting? What are you shoot for Michael Bay? If you take the GoPro off, you save yourself 120 to 150 grams of weight, and you could get this thing down close to 700 grams. And then it's going to fly just like my 700 gram quadcopter with a GoPro, except this is going to be way, way more freaking durable. I don't think I really have a counter argument to that, except that I like GoPro footage. And if I take my GoPro off, then mine will come down closer to 600 grams and it'll fly even better. But I think if you're looking at a frame like this, you're not even thinking about a 600 gram quadcopter. In the same way that I don't even really think about an 800 gram or an 850 gram quadcopter. I know it's not for me, but that doesn't mean it's not for everyone. And I really got to thank Shawn Morrison and the other folks who built these heavier frames for helping sort of get my head around that perspective. If you want to pick this frame up, there are links in the video description. There are affiliate links there. That means that when you click that link and make a purchase, I get a small commission, and it's a really easy way for you to help support the work that I do here. But before you do that, I think you should check out another video I made, and it is a review of the Flyfish Volador, which is another heavier, more durable frame. Maybe not quite as durable as the Tanq, I don't know. But it's a lot more sophisticated. It's got a lot more sort of going on. It's also a lot more complicated. I want you to take a look at that frame. It's only $65. It's pretty freaking reasonable. And I also want you to see what a 700 gram quadcopter flies like. I did a review of the Halo RC Osiris a while back. It comes in under 700 grams and it flies freaking amazing. I'm going to put cards on screen for both of those videos as well as links in the video description if you can't see the cards for some reason. I will see you there.